The young girl you are currently observing was found guilty in December 1968 after she admitted to committing several murders. She was just 10 years old when she committed her first murder, and she is currently regarded as one of the most well-known child killers in modern history. The case of Mary Bell, a child killer who took great pleasure in witnessing the impact of her acts on the families and law enforcement involved, in addition to killing more children. On May 26, 1957, Mary Bell was born to Betty, a 16-year-old prostitute who allegedly begged medical professionals to remove her daughter from her. From then on, things only became worse, with Betty frequently travelling to Glasgow, Scotland on work trips. Little Mary was distressed when her mother vanished, despite the frequent physical and psychological violence she endured from her mother. There was a time when Betty's own sister saw Betty attempt to give Mary away to a woman who had been trying in vain to adopt her. With haste, the sister ended the dubious arrangement and returned the girl to her mother. Mary was also renowned for having strange mishap tendencies. She was said to have accidentally overdosed on sleeping medications and fallen from a window. Some people think Betty was trying to get rid of her own daughter, which is why she caused the mishaps. Others think it was a case of Munchausen's by proxy, meaning Betty relished the sympathy and attention her daughter's tragedies brought her. Embarrassingly, Mary claims that she was repeatedly forced into sexual encounters with males by her mother, starting when she was 5 years old, something that her family was unaware of. But they were aware that Mary had already seen death directly when a bus ran over and murdered her 5-year-old playmate. It makes sense that she was a reclusive and unstable child who was extremely manipulative and violent after everything that had occurred to her. Mary Bell had been acting strangely for weeks before to her first murder. Mary was playing with a 3-year-old kid on May 11, 1968, when he fell off an air raid shelter and suffered serious injuries. Mary and the small child knew differently from his parents, who believed it to be merely an accident. Mary tried to choke their little girls, according to 3 mums who came forward to report the incident to the police the next day. After questioning the boy, the cops let him go after giving him a severe reprimand. Sadly, this young girl's future and the lives she would soon ruin might have been quite different if her accusations had been taken more seriously. Martin Brown's corpse, aged 4, was found in an abandoned structure on May 25, 1968. Because no evident marks or injuries were discovered, the initial investigation concluded that the tragedy was tragic and regrettable. The tiny body of Martin Brown was found under a window by 2 young lads who had broken into the deserted home while looking for scrapwood. An empty aspirin bottle found next to the body led investigators to surmise that the man may have overdosed on the medication. Despite the dried blood and saliva on the boy's cheek that extended to his chin, there were no marks on his body, nor any indications of a struggle. He appeared to have taken some medications, fallen asleep and never woke up. After the 2 boys who had discovered the body yelled out to some nearby labourers, a large group of kids and adults gathered around them, staring at the depressing sight. Martin was identified by the labourers as the youngster they had eaten some cookies with less than an hour earlier. The boys' accidental entrance into the building remained a mystery to them. Mary Bell and Norma Bell, 2 unrelated youngsters despite having the same surname, were able to have a better look of Martin's body by squeezing through a hole in the abandoned building. Mary tricked the youngster into entering the house, and without the police knowing, she killed him by strangling him with her tiny hands. After that, she brought Norma over to the house to display her creations. Mary then decided to go look for Martin's aunt, informing her that she knew where Martin was and that he had been in an accident that had left him covered in blood. The unfortunate woman inadvertently trailed her nephew's killer to the crime scene. She was harassed in the days that followed by Mary and Norma, who would ask her pointed questions like how depressed the family was and whether his mother missed him. Martin's aunt eventually stopped answering the door. Mary asked Martin's mother if she may see Martin when she knocked on his door once. When the bereaved widow confusedly informed the girl that Martin had passed away, Mary retorted, "Oh, I know he's dead. I wish I could see him in his casket. That poor mother must have been inconsolable, especially after learning that it was this tiny girl who had killed him so callously." Unsettlingly, Mary produced a drawing of a boy holding a bottle labelled tablet and lying in precisely the same position as Martin Brown for a class assignment. She called it, "There has been a boy who had just laid down and died," which made it much more horrifying. Mary was the only child to depict the picture, even though she wasn't the only one who knew how Martin had died. Despite the strangeness of this, the teacher didn't show suspicion because she knew the kids had heard about the deceased. Mary persisted in her bullying of other kids and her arrogant demeanour. She once informed the local kids that she had killed someone there, pointing to the house where Martin Brown's body was discovered. The kids laughed at her claim. When Mary turned 11 on May 26, 1968, the girl attacked Norma's younger sister. Norma's father had to forcibly remove her from the house due to her extreme violence. Anyone familiar with Mary knew that she had a tendency toward violence when her temper got out of hand. Mary turned on her best friend Norma and attacked her violently after Martin Brown's little coffin was buried because she wanted to be in the spotlight once more. After kicking the girl in the head and picking at her face, she declared that she was a murderer and that she would kill again. Youngsters who witnessed the assault dismissed the threat as Mary's exaggeration. They had no idea how capable the young girl was. 2 youngsters are seen holding up a sign during a demonstration that the locals organised in an effort to persuade the authorities to demolish abandoned structures in order to prevent more deaths. Mary Bell was a kid among them. Yes, in order to remain involved, the young killer had forced herself into the position. Experts surmise that murderers take this action to feed their narcissistic egos and prolong the thrill of killing. A doctor who examined Martin Brown's body told officers that, given how much smaller and weaker a child's hands are compared to an adult's, it was possible for another child to have strangled him to death without showing any signs of violence, even though no formal criminal investigation had been launched at the time of his death. The 2 buddies made the decision to break into a nursery in order to deface it on the same day that they attacked Norma's sister. Staff found the girls' devastation the following day, along with some eerie messages that the police wrote off as pranks. While one person read, "We did murder Martin Brown," another replied, "I murder so that I may return. Get over it, you bastards." At least one more child's life would have been saved if these admissions of guilt had been given serious consideration. In July 31st, 1968, Mary and Norma Bell assisted in the 3rd strangulation death of Brian Howe, a 3-year-old, in a wasteland close to the scene of Martin Brown's death. Following the boy's death at the hands of Mary Bell, the girls went back and used a razor blade to sever the letter N from the poor boy's stomach. Later, the letter N was replaced with the girl's 2 initials. In addition, Mary Bell severely disfigured Howe's genitalia, scraped his legs, and chopped off a portion of his hair with a pair of scissors. No one will ever know for sure what happened that day since the girls were so little and their accounts kept coming out differently. The depths of depravity that were on exhibit that day, however, are evident. Police started to assume that the notes left at the nursery were not sick jokes after the 2nd child was killed, but rather an admission of murder for Martin Brown. The cops gathered information on potential suspects fast. They asked the local kids about the recent murder cases while concentrating more of their attention on them. Norma and Mary Bell were the 2 girls that stuck out among the rest for acting strangely. Norma was so happy to be a part of the inquiry that she couldn't stop smiling when she was questioned about the murder. The investigator saw that Norma was acting strangely and viewed the entire situation as a big joke. Mary Bell behaved similarly, dodging inquiries and acting erratically. Mary had testified during the interrogation that she had witnessed Brian Howe playing in the vicinity of the accident with another 8-year-old kid. This boy had been holding a pair of scissors, she revealed later. The police were fascinated since they had not given the public access to the information regarding the scissors. A police detective was observing Mary Bell's actions during Brian's burial. He told how the girl was rubbing her hands excitedly, a sinister expression on her face. When the authorities questioned Norma again as a result, the girl confessed to everything that had happened, including the horrible things her best friend had done to Brian Howe and Martin Brown. Mary had admitted to Norma that she liked to strangle both kids and dismember the 3-year-old's body. For a while, the girls held each other accountable for the killings. Norma's parents eventually came forward to clarify that Mary was the one who had acted violently, even against their own family, and that their daughter was not the one who could have been accountable. On December 17, 1968, Norma Bell was found not guilty of any of the charges. On the other hand, Mary Bell was found guilty of manslaughter due to reduced culpability. After psychiatrists presented their diagnosis to the jury, they stated that the girl had obvious evidence of psychopathy. She was labelled dangerous and a serious risk to other children by the judge, Mr. Justice Cossack. She was first taken to the Red Bank Secure Unit in St Helens, Lancashire, UK, and during her incarceration she was moved about a lot. Mary received a great deal of media attention following her conviction. Her mother sold stories to the media on several occasions. Ironically, she was held responsible for her daughter's poor mental state due to a terrible upbringing. Even pages that she claimed Mary had written would be for sale. It's tragic that this woman, who was allegedly pushed into prostitution as a youngster, was able to obtain attention and money from her. Later, when she was just 11 years old, she killed 2 children. When Mary momentarily escaped from Moor Court Open Prison in September 1977, she did make headlines once more. Luckily, she was apprehended, and her prison privileges were revoked for a period of 28 days, a rather light penalty for an assassin on the run. Belle, who was 23 years old, was freed from prison after serving 12 years in different ones. In order to shield herself from attacks and avoid the media frenzy, she was also allowed complete anonymity. She gave birth to a baby girl just 4 years after being let out of jail. After being released, Mary amazingly moved back to her hometown of Tyneside with her infant, but the locals made sure she didn't stay long. Mary contributed to a biography published about her and received payment for it, all while maintaining her anonymity. The government attempted to stop the publishing in the UK because they were offended by this. The anonymity of Mary Bell's daughter was supposed to cease when she turned 18, but on May 21, 2003, Bell prevailed in a High Court case to have both her and her daughter's anonymity preserved for life. This was the first in the UK to have a court order that would permanently shield a person's identity. When the child killer became a grandmother in 2009, it offered the woman a second opportunity to nurture and save a life, as opposed to the 50 years before when she had killed it with her own hands. Belle is protected for the remainder of her life by an anonymity order, so nobody knows for sure where she is right now. It will definitely take a while for anyone to figure out where Belle moved, and after she's gone, it will probably be revealed. But does Mary Bell deserve to spend the rest of her life as a regular person with a regular family after experiencing trauma, forced prostitution, and abuse as a child? Or is there no room for forgiveness for a child who kills other children? Please share your opinions in the comments section below.